Have you ever wondered why others just as tired and pressured as you still stay consistent with their habits, while you flicker on and off like a broken switch? Why, under the same pain, some people collapse, while others grow stronger through their cracks? The answer isn't talent, luck, or circumstance. It lies in the one thing you have full control over: discipline. And the sad truth is that most of us are letting it slip away every day without even noticing. We aren't born with discipline. We build it through quiet, daily choices. In a world that constantly pulls you toward ease, awareness becomes an act of defiance. The Stoics did not live to please fleeting emotions. They lived to sculpt a resilient character, because they understood true freedom isn't doing what you want. It's choosing what is right, even when you don't want to. And that journey begins with one decision: to live deliberately instead of being swept away. So what 10 principles help them preserve that inner strength? 1. Master the morning, because delay begins the moment you open your eyes. There's no battle quieter yet more brutal than the one that takes place each morning, in silence, between you and your pillow. No one sees it, no one cheers, no one judges. But it is there, in that moment, that you silently decide the tone of your day, and sometimes the course of your life. Procrastination doesn't begin with quitting a job or giving up a dream. It begins with the little things: a swipe at the snooze button, a tap for 5 more minutes, a silent bargain you make with yourself. I don't have to start just yet. And with each delay, you unknowingly invite mental stagnation to seep into your habits. Disciplined people aren't always energetic, nor are they morning lovers. They are simply people who understand one thing: the importance of a start lies not in how much you do, but in what you begin with the first action that sets the tone for the rest of the day. The Stoics didn't speak much about perfect schedules. They spoke of the quiet declaration of the soul when you dare to step out of comfort the moment you wake. To them, morning isn't a time, it's a mindset. Marcus Aurelius, a ruler during chaos, didn't start his day with commands or policy. He started by sitting with himself. In a small notebook, he wrote what he would face, what he couldn't control, and the virtues he intended to uphold. It wasn't a religious ritual, it was an honest dialogue between reason and instinct. And you can start the same way, not with elaborate routines, but with a silent commitment. I will not let myself be swept away from the very first minute. Don't mistake mastering your morning for waking up at 5 a.m., running 6 miles, drinking matcha, and writing 5 pages of a journal. If it doesn't suit you, it won't last. Instead, think more simply: what action, no matter how small, if done consistently every morning, will strengthen the image of who you want to become? It could be getting up as soon as the alarm rings without bargaining. It could be washing your face with cold water and looking yourself straight in the mirror. It could be reading 1 paragraph of a book instead of opening Instagram. These seemingly trivial acts, repeated, are the first bricks in building resilience. What matters is not whether you do it all, but whether you keep your word to yourself. A person who keeps a promise to themselves, even just to wake up on time, is building an internal trust no external motivation can replace. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything else: work, health, relationships, and lifestyle. The power of your morning doesn't lie in a checklist, but in the will you forge in silence. Morning is when your willpower is at its purest, untouched by the worries and collisions of the day. If you can seize that moment, you gain an edge before the rest of the world even wakes. And if you miss it, you'll find yourself dragged from one notification to the next without a single moment that belongs to you. So, Don't ask what others do each morning. Ask yourself, how would the person I want to become begin their day? Then begin, if only with one small action that truly matters to you. Every morning you master yourself. You take a step closer to a life no longer controlled by old habits, but led by a steadier version of you. That is discipline. That is the foundation, and that is where real change begins. 2. Master your emotions, because no one can make you lose control unless you allow it. No one has the power to make you angry unless you let them. No words can break you unless you choose to believe them. And no circumstance in life can ruin your day unless you hand over your emotional control. It's a truth that's hard to swallow, but the Stoics declared it centuries ago. It's not the world that hurts you, it's how you respond to the world. I remember once when a close friend forgot my birthday. No message, no call. At first, I felt disappointed, then angry, then imagined all kinds of stories in my head. Maybe they don't value me. Maybe this friendship only matters to me. But once I calmed down, I recalled Epictetus's words. We are not disturbed by what happens, but by our interpretation of it. Maybe my friend was going through something I didn't know. Maybe they were just distracted. And if I let disappointment dictate my actions, the only wound would be the one I inflicted on myself. Mastering emotions doesn't mean denying them. It's not suppression, and it's not pretending to be okay. It means pausing long enough to separate the event from the story you're telling yourself and realizing you always have the power to rewrite that story. Between the moment you're provoked and the moment you react, there's a space. In that space lies your choice. And in that choice is the sanctuary of mental discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about reason as an ideal, he lived it on battlefields, through betrayals and during loss. He once wrote, "You can choose to have no opinion, and without an opinion, you are not harmed. And if you are not harmed, you have not been wronged." This isn't apathy, it's a form of freedom. Freedom from being manipulated by fleeting emotions. Freedom from sinking into mental traps others set. If someone has ever made you mad, try asking yourself, will my reaction right now strengthen my character or weaken it? If you feel sad over something small, ask, is this sadness a signal I need to hear or just the echo of a broken expectation? Emotions are signals, not commands. You can learn to recognize them, observe them, and choose not to act on them. The Stoics didn't aim for a numb life. They aimed for inner regulation where you can feel everything without being ruled by anything. It's a quiet kind of strength, but profoundly enduring. And once you possess it, you no longer live at the mercy of the world. You shape your life from within, one response at a time. Remember, emotional control isn't about being better than others. It's the first step back to your true self, strong, free, and calm. And you can begin the next time someone irritates you. Don't react immediately. Pause, breathe, realize you have a choice. And in that choice lies the beginning of a disciplined mind. 3. Live in the present, because life only happens where you stand. You may be still in your body, but your mind is never still. It drifts either into regrets of the past or into endless rehearsals of what has yet to come. And in that distraction, you miss the only moment that truly belongs to you, the one in which you're breathing, thinking, and alive. No one is a stranger to mental fragmentation. You've sat in a quiet cafe, yet your mind screamed with memories. You've talked to someone dear, yet only half listened because your thoughts were sprinting toward the next task. Life doesn't pass you by because you lack time, it passes because you're not present in it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not let yourself be pulled away between past and future. Only the present is where we live. This isn't just a meditative saying, it's practical guidance. Because only in the present can you act, choose, change, or enjoy. The past can't be edited. The future can't be predicted. And every misplaced worry is a waste of precious energy. The Stoics understood that a wandering mind is a weakened mind. When you're everywhere but here, you lose sharpness, self-control, and the ability to respond wisely. Living in the present doesn't mean ignoring the past or avoiding the future. It means bringing your full attention to whatever you're doing and treating it as if it's the only thing that exists. Think about the last time you were truly present, laughing freely with someone you love, pushing yourself in a workout, or watching the sunset without touching your phone. Those moments have something in common. They weren't interrupted by past or future, and that's why they linger. Presence is the quietest form of discipline. It asks you to pull your mind back from the dozens of distractions tugging at you: news, notifications, expectations, worries. And each time you bring yourself back to the task at hand, you're training an inner strength that most people have lost. In that awareness, you rediscover the peace others only seek externally. Epictetus taught, "Pay attention to what's in front of you, not what's distant, not what's ideal, what is happening right now." Because life isn't in plans, it's in action. It's not in expectations, it's in experience. Every time you sit up straight, fully listen to a song, eat slowly, or breathe deeply instead of rushing, you're living as the disciplined do, fully present, undistracted, and complete. And if your mind ever drifts into a whirl of thoughts, don't blame yourself. Let it be a signal to return. Presence isn't a permanent state, it's a choice repeated by the hour. And each time you choose it, you're not just living deeper, you're reclaiming your life, one moment at a time. 4. Turn obstacles into fuel for growth. No one goes through life without hitting walls. Some people stop, turn around, and carry with them the bitterness of if only it had been easier. Others pause, take a deep breath, and place their hands on that wall, not to curse it, but to begin climbing. The difference isn't in how thick the wall is, it's in how you see it, as a blockage or as training. Marcus Aurelius lived in an era full of turmoil, war, plagues, uprisings, and personal loss. But instead of asking, "Why me?" he asked a different question. What within me will be strengthened by this trial? In Meditations, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not wordplay. It's a perspective that can transform your entire inner life. I once watched a friend lose everything in a single year: his career, reputation, and partner. He disappeared for a while, then returned with a new job, a simpler lifestyle, but a clearer gaze. I asked him what kept him from falling apart. He just smiled. At first, I thought I was being buried. Later, I realized I was being planted. That wasn't poetic, it was the kind of truth you only understand when you walk through pain with awareness. The Stoics didn't deny pain. They simply refused to let it become an excuse. They didn't call failure misfortune. They called it raw material, like iron needing fire before it can be forged into a blade. And like a craftsman, they didn't fear fire because they knew whatever is born from fire does not break easily. The question isn't, how do I avoid obstacles, because that's impossible. The better question is, who will I become after I've passed through this? Real discipline isn't forged when everything is easy. It's formed when you keep your commitment despite changing circumstances, despite rising emotions, despite everything seeming against you. In those moments, you don't just shape outcomes, you shape yourself. Epictetus once said, "You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails." People may let you down. Plans may collapse. Things may not go your way, but you still have the one thing that matters most, your response. And in that response, you can discover a kind of strength that ease could never teach you. Pain, failure, delay, if you treat them as teachers, they will show you what success never can. Not everyone who survives becomes strong, but anyone who learns from what they've survived is no longer weak. And one day you'll realize the things that nearly broke you were the very things that forged you into steel. That's the silent reward of those who refine themselves. Stoics do not fear the fall because they've learned how to rise stronger than the place where they fell. 5. Choose discomfort. Train in hard things so life doesn't catch you off guard. We've grown used to soft shells around our lives. Air-conditioned rooms, meals on demand, comforting scrolls on social media, conveniences masking every kind of hunger, both physical and mental. But the issue isn't convenience. The issue is dependence on it. And when real hardship finally arrives, you no longer have the inner strength to face it because you've never trained for the uncomfortable. The Stoics understood this well. If you don't train your mind in peace, you won't be strong when storms come. Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most powerful philosophers in Rome, still spent days living as if he had nothing, sleeping on the floor, eating plain food, wearing rough clothes, not to suffer, but to remind himself he'd still be okay if everything collapsed. That discomfort didn't weaken him, it made him immune to surprise. I once tried a simple practice, waking up an hour earlier than usual for 30 days, no warnings, no plans. At first, my body resisted, my mind complained, but then something strange happened. I got used to doing hard things without needing a reason. And each time I pushed past a small moment of laziness, I stretched my capacity to endure just a little more. We often think resilience is forged by hardship, but Stoics didn't wait for hardship, they invited it in as a mental exercise. They knew, if you're only strong when life is easy, you're not truly strong. True strength is choosing what's hard so you're ready for what no one warns you about. You don't have to punish yourself to grow, but you do have to step out of your comfort zone intentionally and regularly. Sit still when there's nothing entertaining. Speak the truth in a conversation you usually avoid. Do the thing you fear before you feel ready. That's not extremism, that's preparation. Epictetus once said, "We train in peace so we won't be overwhelmed in war." And war, here, doesn't mean bombs and bullets. It could be sudden loss, a mental breakdown, a rejection, a pain no one shares. If you've grown familiar with discomfort, you won't react like a victim, you'll respond like someone who's prepared. Comfort isn't the enemy. But if you let it define your limits, you'll never discover how strong you could be. And when real adversity strikes, you'll realize the most terrifying part wasn't what you were facing, but that you never practiced standing in it. So, start small. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Choose silence over complaints. Do what you usually avoid. Every small decision pushes back against the pull of ease. And each time you do, you're not just getting stronger, you're becoming unshakable. Lose everything in a single year: his career, reputation, and partner. 6. Look at death. Not to fear it, but to live more fully. We live as if we'll never die. We postpone what matters, hesitate to speak our truths, delay dreams for someday, with no guarantee that day will ever come. We avoid thoughts of endings, hoping that will somehow stretch life longer. But not looking at death doesn't make it disappear, it only makes us forget to live fully. Marcus Aurelius, a ruler at the height of power, kept a human skull in his study. Not for decoration, but to remind himself of a simple truth. Every day lived is time borrowed from fate. The Stoics didn't speak of death to scare you. They spoke of it to help you live with clarity, with healthy urgency, with the awareness that each moment you have is a gift. I still remember the first time I felt time's fragility when someone I loved died suddenly. All our shared plans unfinished. All the conversations we meant to have next week gone forever. From that moment on, I began to ask myself each night, if today were the last, would I have regrets? And strangely, that question made me braver, clearer, and more real. Death, when you look at it directly, stops being frightening. It becomes a purifier. It strips away the superficial, exposing what truly matters to you. Petty arguments, small fears, illusions of control over others, they all fade when you imagine life counted in days. Epictetus once advised, when you embrace someone you love, remind yourself they're not yours forever. That's not cold. It's a wake-up call to love without delay, to appreciate without conditions. When you accept that everything may be lost, you start cherishing what's still here. And from that imagined loss, you don't become colder, you become grateful. The Stoics called this practice memento mori. Remember you will die. But this reminder doesn't lead to gloom. It leads to awareness. It compels you to say what must be said, to do what must be done, to let go of what doesn't matter. When you know you're not immortal, you stop wasting your life. If you're delaying an important decision, ask, if this were my last month, what would I do? If you're angry at someone you love, ask, if tomorrow I lost the chance to say I'm sorry, could I live with that? Death helps you live more simply, more kindly, more truthfully, not because you fear losing, but because you understand that nothing is truly yours to keep. And when you live as though any day might be the last, you stop fearing the end. Because you've lived with the intention to leave nothing unfinished. You can't control when you go, but you can control how you show up while you're here. And that is the deepest discipline of all. The discipline of a soul that knows its time is limited, but chooses to treat every minute as a chance to become something better. 7. Visualize loss, to cultivate gratitude and readiness. We often only realize the value of something when it's gone. A loved one who has passed, an opportunity that slipped away, a once stable health that now feels fragile. Only after loss do we wish we could turn back time to say kinder words, to hold someone tighter, or simply to be fully present while they were still with us. But the tragedy isn't the loss itself, it's that we lived as if it would never happen. The Stoics didn't wait for loss to learn appreciation. They practiced it every day, using a method that seems paradoxical, visualizing the loss of what they held most dear. It may sound pessimistic, but the truth is the opposite. This practice didn't make their hearts colder, it made their hearts warmer. They didn't live in fear, they lived with clarity. Epictetus taught that when you kiss your child, silently remind yourself that tomorrow you might not see them again. Not to haunt yourself, but to love more deeply in that very moment. When you imagine losing a friend, you won't let a dinner be ruined by a phone. When you picture never hearing a familiar voice again, you begin to listen with your whole soul. I once tried this exercise on a quiet night, imagining my mother no longer being here. In the first few minutes, my chest tightened, but soon, That feeling gave way to something else: gratitude. Grateful for whatever time was still left, no matter how little. Grateful for the chance to love her in a way that would leave nothing unfinished. And from that moment on, every conversation, every gesture carried a new weight, not taken for granted, but cherished. Premeditatio malorum. The premeditation of adversity is a kind of spiritual immunity. When you've rehearsed loss in your mind, you're no longer paralyzed when it arrives. It doesn't mean you won't hurt, but you'll face the pain with a prepared soul. It doesn't mean you won't cry, but you won't collapse from surprise. And the most remarkable thing about this practice is, even if no loss ever comes, you will still become someone who lives more deeply. Each day will feel less ordinary. Each word will hold more weight. Every hug, every glance, every presence, you will see them through the eyes of someone who once imagined they might never see them again. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything you love is perishable, cherish it as though you are about to part from it." When you live this way, you are not crushed by life's fragility, you are elevated by your awareness of it. You love without holding back. You live without delay. And you prepare yourself not to fear what may leave, but to one day look back and say, "I was there, fully. Nothing was left unsaid." 8. Become worthy, not by chasing results, but by becoming the kind of person who creates them. We often begin by asking, how do I get what I want? How do I succeed, lose weight, make more money, gain recognition, find love? But the Stoics didn't ask these questions. They weren't concerned with what you achieve. They cared about who you are becoming in the process, because for them, every result is simply a byproduct of becoming the right kind of person. Epictetus once said, "First, decide who you want to be, then act accordingly." It's a subtle shift from pursuit to embodiment. You don't need to wait until you have something to feel whole. You simply need to live in alignment with the character that such things require, and the rest will follow as a natural consequence. I once met someone who wanted to be a writer, but after 3 years hadn't written a single chapter. He always said he needed enough time, enough inspiration, the right conditions. But what he lacked wasn't opportunity, it was identity. A writer doesn't wait for inspiration. They write because it's who they are, not to chase a goal, but because it's in their nature. If you want to be healthy, don't just focus on the scale. Ask yourself, how does a healthy person live day to day? If you want to be successful, don't just look at the results. Ask, how does a successful person think and act when no one is watching? The answer doesn't lie in the future, it lies in how you live today. Marcus Aurelius didn't keep his journal for others to read. He wrote to himself morning and night to check whether he had lived up to his ideals. Not to be praised for virtue, but to avoid drifting from the path he had chosen. That's the discipline of someone who refuses to let outcomes blur their character. Remember, you don't become worthy through one flash of brilliance. You become that person through quiet, repeated action. Every time you choose honesty over ease, perseverance over quitting, kindness over self-interest, you're placing a brick in the foundation of who you are. And then one day, what you seek may come, but you won't chase it with desperation. Because the most valuable thing won't be the result, it will be that you've become strong enough to hold it with integrity. The right thing at the wrong time can destroy you, but when you've grown into it, nothing can shake you. So instead of asking, what do I need to achieve? Start with a deeper question. Who do I want to become? When you focus on building the kind of person who can create value, you stop chasing outcomes like a hungry ghost. You walk with purpose, and the results are simply the footprints left behind by someone who knows where they're going. 9. Build systems, not just goals. There's a reason so many people start with enthusiasm, but burn out quickly. They rely entirely on goals without a system to carry them through. Goals are like the light at the end of a tunnel. They give you direction. But systems are the legs that get you there, one step at a time, whether or not the light is visible. We live in a world that glorifies results but rarely speaks of the process. People celebrate success but ignore the slow, repetitive rhythm that made it possible. You see a successful entrepreneur and want to be like them. But are you willing to endure the dull, repetitive actions month after month, year after year in silence, just as they once did? You want a healthy body, but are you willing to walk every day, eat more simply, and go to bed earlier even when no one notices? The Stoics didn't put their trust in inspiration because they knew it comes and goes like the wind. They built systems, intentional habits anchored in reason, not emotion. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal every morning and night, not because each day was unique, but because repetition itself shapes the mind. Discipline doesn't come from bursts of energy. It is forged through consistency in the small but right things. You might have a goal to write a book, but without a system of writing 30 minutes a day, it'll remain a dream. You might want to learn a new language, but without a clear routine, your progress will be vague and fleeting. A goal gives you direction, but the system sustains your momentum, especially on the days when motivation disappears. A good system doesn't have to be grand. It must be simple enough that you have no excuse to skip it. 3 deep breaths before starting work. 5 minutes of reading before bed. 10 push-ups every morning after getting out of bed. Small things, repeated, bring great change over time. The Stoics didn't chase breakthrough improvements. They believed in quiet sharpening 1% each day. And the beautiful thing is, once your system is solid, you no longer rely on mood. Whether you're happy or tired, excited or bored, the system keeps you on the path. When a habit becomes part of your internal structure, you don't need willpower to force it. You do it as a reflex of someone who lives with inner order. Seneca once reminded us, all solid progress comes from consistency, not drama. And consistency happens when you stop deciding every day and let the system decide for you. You don't need a new goal, you need an old system done faithfully. So if you're exhausted from chasing results without ever feeling progress, pause. Don't ask, what should I achieve next? Ask, what should I repeat today to become someone I respect? Then let your system do the rest quietly, steadily, without applause, but without ever betraying you. 10. Virtue is the real victory. In a world that measures success by money, status, physique, and recognition, there is one form of victory often forgotten. The quiet triumph of someone who never trades their character for anything. The Stoics called this virtue. Not a title, not fame, but integrity, kept intact even when no one is watching. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The greatest victory is doing the right thing even when misunderstood, hurt, or forgotten," he wasn't trying to earn moral points. He was writing from the battlefield, where he held absolute power to punish, to retaliate, to do anything an emperor could do. But he didn't. Not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough not to betray his conscience, even when he could have. You might succeed in the eyes of others, but if you had to sell your integrity to get there, can you truly sleep in peace at the end of the day? You might win an argument, but if that victory cost you your composure, your respect, and your humility, that's not a win. That's a loss of the soul. Virtue is doing the right thing when you're fully capable of doing the wrong. It's keeping your promises to yourself, even when no one is holding you accountable. It's offering help without expecting gratitude. It's telling the truth, even when it costs you an advantage. It's being patient with others while you're burning inside. It's preserving your kindness in a world that keeps trying to make you bitter. True victory is not in controlling others, it's in mastering yourself. Not in changing the world, but in not letting the world distort your moral compass. The Stoics understood that outcomes were beyond their control, but conduct was always a choice. And for that reason, virtue became the ultimate measure of a life, not achievements, not possessions, but who you became when no one forced you to be good. You cannot control who believes in you, who supports you, or who respects you. But you can control how you show up each day. You can choose fairness, reason, calm, self-restraint, and gratitude. These things never go out of style. No one can take them from you. And when you live that way, whether you gain everything or nothing in the world's eyes, you've already won, because you've remained yourself. Remember, everything you chase may one day vanish, but the character you build will remain. And when you leave this world, people won't. I don't say these things from some elevated place. I've lost to myself many times, quitting halfway, breaking promises I made to myself, saying things I should have kept in silence. But those moments of failure taught me this. Discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose again, every day, even after you've fallen. I realized that every time I reacted instead of reflecting, every time I delayed because of laziness, I was refusing the greatest power I had, self-mastery. And from there, I understood. To live stoically is not to appear tough, but to be soft within and unshakable without. It's choosing virtue, reason, and presence not because it's easy, but because it's the only way not to betray yourself. I'm not perfect, but each day I try to live worthy of the best version I know I can become, and that is the one thing I won't compromise. If something in this video resonated with you, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. And if there's one truth to hold on to after everything, it's this. Living with discipline doesn't make you rigid. It sets you free, in the deepest sense of the word. Because there is no freedom greater than being the master of yourself.